I was the only one who ever visited my brother's grave until the gifts started appearing, each one more personal than the last, each one not meant for him, but for me. It started small, a child's toy, a plastic dinosaur, green and scuffed, placed neatly at the base of my brother's headstone. I assumed it was a mistake. Maybe a kid wandered through the cemetery, playing among the graves like kids do when they don't yet understand what a cemetery is. I picked it up, smiled faintly, and set it aside. That was the first time I noticed something, off. The grass around the stone wasn't just trampled, it was flattened, almost pressed down in a perfect oval, like someone had sat there for a long time. I had been visiting Luke's grave for nearly a year, every Sunday at 4 p.m., like clockwork. It gave my life structure after the accident, after the world cracked down the middle and left me floating. No one else ever came. He had no family left, no friends nearby. It's just me. The next week, it was a feather, black, long, and glossy. It was perched upright in the soil, like it had been planted there. Birds fly over cemeteries all the time. I told myself that. But something about the way it stood unnerved me. It hadn't fallen. It had been placed. At that time, I didn't touch it. I asked the groundskeeper if he'd seen anyone else visiting my brother's grave. He just gave me a tired look and said, "No, not that plot. You're the only one, ma'am." Week 3, there was a note. It was tucked into the top of the stone, folded cleanly, paper yellowed like it had been in someone's pocket a long time. No envelope. Okay. I hesitated before opening it, my hands already starting to shake. It said, "You shouldn't come alone." No signature. It's just those 4 words written in thin, spidery handwriting. I left early that day, heart pounding. I told myself I wouldn't go back, but I needed to stop visiting. Let him rest. Let myself heal. But grief has its own gravity, and I found myself there again the next Sunday, drawn like a tide. I couldn't resist. And this time, there was someone else there, a little boy. He stood about 10 feet from the grave, still as a statue, his back to me. He looked maybe 7 or 8, wearing old-fashioned clothes, suspenders, and a pale blue shirt, too thin for the cold. I called gently, "Are you lost?" He didn't move. I took a step closer. "Do you need help?" Finally, he turned his head. Not all the way, just enough for me to see his face from the corner. His skin was grayish, like paper left out in the rain, and his eyes, they weren't right. They were too open, dry and glassy, like something looking through me, not at me. Then he turned fully and took a step toward me. I backed away before I realized I was even moving, stumbling into the damp grass. But when I looked up again, he was gone. No sound, no footsteps, just gone. I left in a daze, didn't even look at Luke's stone that time. That night, I dreamed of the boy. In the dream, he was sitting at the base of the grave, humming to himself and digging his fingers into the soil. He didn't look up. He just whispered over and over, "I live here now." The next morning, I called the cemetery office. I needed answers. I asked if any children had ever been buried near my brother. Then the woman on the phone said, "That can't be right. That lot was only opened 2 years ago." I told her what I saw. She went quiet. Then, carefully, "You said your brother's in plot 28B, right?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. Another pause. Then, there was not a 28B until last year. But we found something strange when we were preparing the ground. We found bones, small ones, looked like they'd been buried decades earlier. The police were called, of course, but they ruled it inconclusive. Nothing to identify. We reburied everything deeper, then laid your brother's casket above. I felt sick. She then added, gently, "No one else was told. Didn't want to upset the families." I went back one last time. I don't even know why. The cemetery was silent. My footsteps felt too loud, and on the headstone there was a final note, folded the same way. It said, He can't rest until I do. Below the message was a name, a child's name, Thomas Reeves. I searched the records. There's no Thomas Reeves buried anywhere in that cemetery. No death certificate, no obituary. But in a faded article from 1949, I found a police report. A boy named Thomas Reeves went missing on farmland that would eventually become Briar Hill Cemetery. They never found his body, but I know where he is now, beneath my brother, watching, waiting, and now, every night, I dream of soil under fingernails, and a voice whispering, "You shouldn't have come alone." When we arrived at the cemetery, the headstone was gone, and there was just a gaping patch of raw earth where it had stood for over a century. By the time we left, I was convinced something under the soil was waiting to be free. I grew up hearing stories about the land, nothing dramatic, just the typical old family stuff. My grandparents' farm sat next to an overgrown cemetery that dated back to the early 1800s. Every Memorial Day, we'd visit the graves, place flowers, and my mom would recount who was buried where. Most were distant ancestors, farmers, settlers, people whose names barely meant anything beyond the granite slabs that bore them. But there was one grave that always stood out. It was the tallest in the family plot, a towering, weathered monument with an angelic figure perched on top, hands clasped in prayer. The name on it was Elias Corwin. No birth date, only the year he died, 1872. I remember that clearly because it was the same year the family barn first burned down. No one ever talked much about Elias. If I asked, they'd just say, he didn't belong around here for long. This year, we went up to the cemetery late in the afternoon. My mom, dad, and little sister, Katie, made the walk across the field with me. The sky was gray and low, the kind of sky that presses on you like it knows something you don't. The air smelled like damp grass and something faintly metallic. When we reached the plot, my mom stopped short. "Where the hell is it?" she said, her voice sharp. The angel, gone. Elias's headstone had vanished. In its place was a patch of disturbed earth, a deep, uneven depression, as if the ground had been torn up recently. The grass hadn't grown back, and the soil looked raw, freshly churned. It's not just removed, but violated. It was here, my mom said, more to herself than us. It's always been here. Well, just stood there, staring. My dad circled the area, muttering about vandalism. Katie started to cry. She was only 7, and the missing monument clearly unsettled her. "I don't like it here," she said, pulling on my mom's sleeve. "It feels wrong." I felt it too, a weight in the air. Like we'd opened something we shouldn't have. We called the town's historical society the next morning. They hadn't authorized any removal. No one had reported damage, theft, nothing. The monument, they insisted, was still registered, still marked on the plot's record. But when we asked them to come look, the director got strangely evasive. "I don't think we can help you," she said, after a long pause. "Some plots are better left alone, okay?" That night, I had trouble sleeping. My room at the farmhouse faced the field, and even with the curtains closed, I could feel the direction of that empty grave, like it was watching. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a sound, scraping, faint but deliberate, like stone against stone. I sat up, heart pounding, and strained to hear. It stopped. I told myself it was the wind against the barn, or maybe some animal rooting in the field. But I couldn't shake the image of something climbing out of the earth. The next morning, Katie was gone. We searched the house, the barn, the woods behind the property. Nothing. My parents were frantic. Then my mom got a strange look in her eyes and took off across the field. I followed her, my stomach turning with every step toward the cemetery. The grave, Elias' grave, was no longer just disturbed. Now it was open. A ragged hole, nearly 6 feet deep, gaped in the earth. No casket, no remains, just darkness. And at the edge, Barely visible in the churned soil were small footprints. They looked like Katie's. We called the police, of course. They searched the hole, sent dogs into the woods, canvassed the area. No sign of her. Eventually, they labeled it a missing child case. Stranger abduction, they said. An outsider. It made no sense. My family left the farm that year. My parents couldn't look at the field without breaking down. But I couldn't forget. A few weeks ago, over a decade later, I went back. The cemetery is still there, overgrown, broken, silent. Elias Corwin's headstone was back. I'm not making this up. Was standing there, just like before. The angel, weathered but intact. The same name, the same date. But now, there was another line beneath it, and she followed him home. No one else believes me. I've shown pictures to friends, but in every one, the monument looks blank. No engraving, no inscription. That night, back in my hotel room, I had the dream again. Katie standing in the grave, her eyes empty, her mouth moving without sound. Behind her, the angel slowly turns its head to look at me. I haven't slept since. There's something in that ground. Something we let out when the headstone disappeared, and something that wanted to come back. And now it's marked her name too. The face in the footage wasn't just looking at the camera, it was looking at me. And the tombstone it hid behind doesn't exist in that cemetery. It never did. I've been investigating paranormal claims for almost 10 years, long enough to know that 99% of what people think is haunted can be explained by wind, wiring, or wishful thinking. But there's that 1%. This happened last fall at a small cemetery in rural Pennsylvania. The place was called Briar Hill. It wasn't on any maps, just a crumbling stone wall hidden behind a stretch of pine forest. I found out about it from a guy named Owen, who'd emailed me saying he'd experienced something off while hiking nearby. Said he heard a woman's voice whispered his name, though he was alone. Said he found his phone full of black photos he didn't remember taking. The usual red flags for urban legends. Still, I was curious. I planned a solo overnight stakeout like I'd done a dozen times before. Set up 2 trail cams, my infrared night cam, a motion sensor, and left a digital recorder running by what appeared to be the oldest plot, a tilted stone dated 1813. For the first 4 hours, it was silent. No EMF spikes, no movement, just the chirp of crickets and the occasional rustle of a raccoon. I wrapped up just after 3 a.m., packed my gear, and went back to the motel. I almost didn't review the footage right away. I was tired, and it felt like another bust. But something had tripped the motion sensor around 2:41 a.m. I queued up the trail cam footage. Grainy, black, and white. Trees swaying in the breeze. I saw nothing for several minutes. Then, one frame before the motion alert, a shape appeared. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a person. At least, not in motion. It was a face, dead center in the frame, leaning out from behind a tombstone, watching. The face was pale, eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted, like it had just been caught mid-breath. But what chilled me wasn't the face. It was the tombstone. There wasn't one like it in the cemetery. I know, because I'd walked the whole place, twice. This one was tall and jagged, like a split piece of black slate. It had no name, no date, just a strange carving, almost like a spiral burned into the surface. I paused the footage and zoomed in as best I could. The detail was too sharp for a trail cam. One frame, then gone. I checked the timestamp. 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 3 seconds a.m. I flipped to the other camera, the one set up at a different angle. It caught the same moment from a different side. No face this time, but the tombstone was there, just for 2 frames. Then gone again. I felt my skin go cold. I checked the audio recorder, synced to the same timeline. At exactly 2:41 a.m., there was a faint click, like a shutter. Then a voice. It whispered one word. Closer. I sat frozen, headphones still on, heart hammering in my chest. I know editing tricks. I know audio glitches. This wasn't that. The whisper was layered deep, the kind of thing you don't hear unless you know when to listen. But it was there. I played it back 5 times. Each time it made me feel watched. I knew I had to go back. Not because I wanted to, but because if I didn't, I'd never sleep again. So I returned the next night. I brought a friend, this time Mark, a fellow investigator. He thought it was probably tampering, maybe someone playing a prank. We walked the entire cemetery by flashlight. Still no tombstone like the one in the footage. Nothing even close. But as we passed the old 1813 marker, Mark stopped cold. Did you hear that? I didn't. Not at first. Then I did. A soft click, like a camera shutter, behind us. We spun around, lights flashing through the trees. Nothing. Then Mark swore. He pointed to the screen on his digital camera. There was a new photo. We hadn't taken it. It showed the 2 of us standing exactly where we were, now but behind us. Over my left shoulder was the face. Same pale skin, same wide eyes. Only this time, the mouth was open wider. It's too wide. No tombstone in this one. I wanted to leave. Mark agreed. We packed up fast, walking backward out of the woods. I kept my light trained behind us the whole time. That photo was the last one his camera ever took. The memory card corrupted completely. Not just blank. Corrupted. Nothing could recover the data, except for that one photo, which had auto-uploaded to his cloud. I have a copy. I don't show it to people anymore, because there's something wrong with it now. When I first saw it, the face was blurry. But every time I look at it, it gets clearer. It's not just a still image. It's changing. And last night, God help me, I swear the eyes were looking in a different direction. They were looking at me, like it knows I'm still watching. Like it's waiting for me to come back. But I won't, because if I do, I think the next photo won't be of me. It'll be me.